Hey again, everyone. I just posted a video about the story behind this Daredevil 1 purple label. The topic of this video is purple poison, and I'm going to get to that in a second. So, I mentioned that I had resubmitted this book for the final time. It's going to stay this great. I'm not cracking it out again after all the effort I put into it. But I ended up submitting this with two other books in the submission. And I wanted to share kind of what happened and what I think, which maybe is, I'll say is, not maybe, is conjecture on my behalf, but the result of a number of separate experiences that I personally have gone through with any type of cleaning that's done to comics and purple labels, and how CGC's grading and knowledge of these actions or activities, I should say, have increased and impacted grading. So I will always tout that I believe that for the most part, CGC's grading is very objective. And what that means is they have a criteria, a grading list. If you picked up the most recent copy of their grading guide, it has lists of and details of how they grade books, how you personally could grade books, how things are defects are counted against, and how the grade is achieved. So if you imagine, all they have to do is complete a form, a very objective form, and then that tallies into what the final grade would be. Now, again, I said for the most part, I feel that's how it is, but I'm going to talk about where I feel like some of that's subjective. So I sent this book in with two other books. One of them we're going to get to is this Amazing Spider-Man 7 that I bought, that I thought had some room for improvement, and I should take it out of the plastic so you guys can see it. So it really didn't have any staining. The back was really dirty. It had a lot of bends that could be pressed out. So it was a 3.0 off-white to white pages, nice little New York City label. I went ahead and cracked this out, cleaned it, put some love and time into it, and it came back on this invoice. It came back stayed the same, 3.0 off-white pages. So it was a little bummed about that. I think it's for a 3.0, I don't really understand what the defects are. It does have this big crease here. It's got a lot of cover wear, a lot of spine wear, definitely some dirt and stuff that just you can't clean without being detrimental and tearing up the spine. There's no spine splits. The staples are attached. There's no detached staples in there. There's no big chunks out of it. There's no big stains. The back looks pretty good. I mean, there are little ticks out here. There is some a little tear down here, but for the most part, sorry guys. For the most part, the book looks pretty good. I would put this around a 4.0, to be honest. Like, I thought it was a 3.5, 4.0. But it is what it is. I put it in there. I thought I had a chance of getting a nice bump on the book. At least a half grade or grade point would be worth it. At the end of the day, it's a great cover, second appearance of the Vulture. So I put that in there. Now here's where I think it gets interesting. I also had this, let me show I also had this ASM 129 that was a 4.0 white pages, all right? And I made a video on this, so you're gonna see the whole video on this. But the back was just tore up, okay? And I mean, not tore up, but like just looked like somebody had crumbled it up and it was really dirty and everything. I spent a lot of time cleaning that cover. Now, admittedly, on the Daredevil, I did do stain removal on here. I did do blue LEDs to try to lighten the staining on the cover and everything. So that cover cleaned, I think, is warranted, especially for my overdoing it on the front cover. That was in the same invoice with this one. This book got none of that treatment. It got a standard clean and press. Front cover was cleaned, back cover was cleaned. You've seen those videos, you know how I do the process. But that was nothing that I do out of the ordinary on hundreds of books now that I have cleaned and submitted and got back as blue labels. The only difference with this one is that it was in the invoice with this. So this came back as a 5.0 with slight B1 restoration with cover clean. So I was super bummed about that. And I'll show you, I mean, we'll get to the video later, what it looks like, but that's the back cover. I mean, yes, I cleaned this, but with standard procedures. There was no whitening, there was no, anything out of the ordinary on this book. It was cleaned with, erasers and these little things that I've shown in the videos. Now, I'm happy about the grade book, the grade point. Also, the page colors went to off-white to white pages from white pages. So I'm happy about that. But here's what I think is going on. I think what happens is that if you have something overt and an invoice, then let's say that they graded this, or let's say they grade this first, all right? They grade this first and they look like, okay, this is definitely overt. This person has cleaned this cover. Well, I think to them, to the grader, that also means that I should look at these other books in a little more detail in case the cover is also cleaned on those books. And I think that that's what happened in this case. I think they got to this book, they looked at it and they're like, I don't know, they did it on that book. This back cover does look pretty good, thankfully. I think this cover was cleaned too in the same way that this one was in using the LEDs or using missing peroxide and all that stuff to whiten it, which it wasn't. The problem is that there's no way to objectively determine that. There's no magic thing that you can do to apply to it to look and say like, yes, this cover was clean using those methods. It's just that they subjectively has to estimate. So if anything is subjective, then it can be biased by somebody's other experiences. And if their experience was, I saw a cover cleaned cover in this submission, then to them, it's more likely that there are also other clean cover books in that submission, which parsimoniously makes a lot of sense, right? Like that makes sense. However, I don't think that's the way that things should be graded. It should not be subjective. Oh, I saw one, there must be another. This one looks too good for the grade level it is. This one must have been cleaned in the same way. That, I think, is a problem. So I don't really know how to deal with this. As I said, I've had also separate experiences with this. I had another experience with a number of covers that I cleaned and pressed, did not whiten, but I had bought them specifically because of their white covers for their particular books that they were. And they came back as purple levels too. So I think what's happening in the field is that more and more people are learning and using these techniques. Some are going overboard, but the CGC graders and CBCS are looking for it. And the unfortunate part is when they see when they have no method of objectively determining whether a cover is clean, then they have to base it based on the information in front of them. And I think what's happening again is that that's causing them to have some false positives. So in every kind of detection for everything, for every kind of diagnostic test, you have some false positives in there. And they try, in diagnostic testing, we try to minimize false positives as much as possible. But what happens is that when you're trying to increase sensitivity, your ability to detect comics who have had clean covers, you're going to also maybe see a decrease in specificity. And what we're seeing here is that a decrease in specificity or an increase in false positives. I bet you guys didn't know you were going to get a little side in sensitivity and specificity for diagnostic testing in here, but it goes the same for everything. So this true positive, this false positive. I don't know what to do in this case. I'm most likely just going to crack it out and resubmit it. And I really don't think, there's nothing overt here. I didn't do anything with this book. I probably will give it one more press. There's some stuff on here that I think I could still fix after the last go round. Again, you'll see the video on this whole thing, but I'm going to crack this out and resubmit it and hope that it comes back a blue label, because I want to appreciate my work and that I got it from a 4 to a 5.0. And again, you'll see why and how that happened in the previous video. And that way I again, don't end up with another purple label, because these make me sad. They really do. All right, guys. Well, hopefully I'll have some better news for you after I get this one back. I'll submit the full video to you guys soon, and you guys can see the whole process that I went through to clean and press that one. Talk to you guys later. video, but here I'm going to show you what the results of this entire process. So I ended up, as you saw, cracking it out, putting a lot of work into it. Again, fixing this corner, fixing this edge, taking the tack iron and going page by page through the entire book, dampening it, using the tack iron to smooth things out. And now I have for you a 6.0 white label, or white pages, blue label with this beautiful, Amazing Spider-Man New York scene label, custom label here. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's what this book should be. All right, I just did the reveal of the ASM 129. That was a roller coaster of a process of working on. Started out as the 4.0. You saw in the first half of this video that I filmed back in October, end of October, where I had received it back as a 5.0 restored cover, including, or restored grade that came back with the notes of cover cleaned, and honestly no other grading notes on the book. Now, at the time, I was certainly bummed out when I recorded that video. I cracked it out promptly after that. Then I was going to just press it, and I decided to really put a lot more effort in it, spend a lot of time with the tack iron, as you'll see in the other video, focusing on this corner, this area of the page right here, focused a little more on the back cover to clean it up, and resubmitted it. Now, as you saw from the earlier parts of the earlier discussion of this video, my conjecture at this time, which now has an N of 1, so a sample size of 1, at least in this case, was that I had submitted this book back with a Daredevil 1. That was a book that I had gone overboard with whitening, and had impacted the cover and kind of removed and pulled some ink on it. So that one had overt whitening. Submitted it with this book, came back, and it was a 5.0 purple label. And my thought at the time was that what happened was this was, as I described in there, a false positive. They had seen the Daredevil 1, seen that it had been whitened and cleaned, and then they looked at this book differently. Now, I submitted this individually, and I'll post the grader notes with this as well. And I would say that what this then confirms that at least this was indeed a false positive. If I had sent it alone or other books, I don't think it would have come back. I think it would have come back a 5.0 or a 5.5 blue label. And this is, with the additional work that I put into it after cracking out, is the correct grade for the book. A 6.0 white pages. It started out, if you remember, as a 4.0 white pages and went to off-white to white. So 6.0 white pages. Put a lot of effort into that back cover. But again, what I think is happening is there's a little bit of bias and subjectivity that's sneaking in. I have no clue what the internal policies are for grading cover cleaned with the new rise in practice of cover whitening. So that's a topic for discussion. I really wish sometimes that CGC would put out kind of position statements. I'm sure the industry would be really excited to read one of those. Now, one of the things in particular is I don't know if this is cover cleaned, meaning that somebody went overboard with the eraser. With if you've seen other videos, people have magic erasers, and you can actually use that, and it's like sandpaper, and rub away the ink and everything. So if I were to take magic eraser, rub this out and remove some of this ink, and they saw that, they would give it cover cleaned. Now, if they thought that it was whitened excessively, so if somebody used the whitening techniques, the blue LEDs in combination with various concentration of hydrogen peroxide to lighten the page color and went too far, that would also get cover cleaned. Now, it's hard to say without a specific designation whether this is one or the other. And I think that they did think that it was artificially whitened based on how the back cover looked and the grade overall and the other book that came in it. What I would like to see CGC do is change cover clean to specifically mean over erasure marks or something, and cover whitened to designate that they believe that the book was lightened artificially. So I don't know. Again, I don't know what their internal policies are. I don't know how graders have been instructed to approach when they think that there's cover whitening in a particular book. Obviously, there are false positives. Again, as I explained, when you're trying to catch stuff coming through that doesn't have an objective metric, then you're going to run into instances of false positives. And this is a little statistics aside, but when you have low prevalence of an incident, so like if very few people are whitening and all the large majority of books that come through there have not been whitened, then the rate of false positives goes higher. So the likelihood of getting back a book that's a purple label when you haven't done anything is higher when only a few people are doing it and when CGC starts watching out for it. So again, I think that they maybe could put out some notes and explain that. I also have seen some changes recently. I saw these books starting to come back if they think it's whitened with conserved. I believe those are gray or silver labels. So I don't know if they're going to switch from doing restored grade to conserved for when they believe that there's been cover whitening. Again, I don't know. Like when I made this video originally, it was before the whole incident with the case swapping with some of those Mark Jeweler newsstands. So if you guys follow the field, you probably have seen those. Way before that, this is mixed in there somewhere with all the other grading things that occur and with all of the little variations in the grading process. So again, like I said, I think the majority of CGC grading is objective. Identifying accurately covered clean in terms of applications of whitening processes to the inside or outside of the cover, I think is more of a subjective approach, and it can be impacted by what you're submitting with that particular book. So my suggestions is that if you do have a book that you have applied those whitening techniques, first of all, be very conservative with it. Do not go overboard. If it is, for example, one of the Steranko, Captain America 101 or other covers or Sergeant Fury 4 that has a white cover, those are all yellow. If they get a book in there and it's like pristine, bleached white, like somebody's teeth that has veneers, you're like, dude, that's definitely like you've gone too far. So definitely be conservative. Second, if you're going to submit other books, especially if they're high value books where you're paying $80 to $100 to get them graded and shipped back to you, then do not submit them with it. I really think that there's some spillover that's going on, and they're getting some false positives that are a little biased in the other books that are in the submission. I've also talked about this in terms of submitting multiple copies of the same book. I don't think that's a good practice either. So the same regard, I think that you inherently start grading things against each other, and that's a bad approach too. So submit books that are different copies of different books, and don't submit books that haven't been whitened with ones that have been whitened, and take your losses when you get them. If you play the game, you're going to get burned sometimes, and you just got to deal with it. So if that's the path that you want to go on, then just know that these purple levels are possible or conserved. And I have no idea how the field's going to approach these, but nobody wants purple labels. It's the same as color touch. And you're like, I didn't put pages back in there. I didn't replace stables. I didn't whiten anything. Like, I think it should, personally, I think it should be more of a conserved grade than a purple label. So I don't know cost-wise what that means, but at the end of the day, I think this was a really interesting example. It sucks that I missed out on the money, but it was offset by me working on the book, putting another 2 hours of labor into the book and squeaking out another entire grade point. So if this wasn't here and we just went from a 4.0 to a 6.0, man, that would be a great day. And that's what I thought I was going to do. When you see the other video, you see how much work went into this back cover. You'll see that it was well worth that bump. And I'll post the grader notes. It is exactly what you would think it would be. Spine wear, some tears here and there. So yeah, I leave you with an interesting experience and anecdote, because this is only one book, and there's other people that have other anecdotes they can share, but I do think that it would be great if CGC could kind of clarify this area of grading. So yeah, on to the next adventure.